Welcome back to Main Street Living. All right, NFL fans, listen up. We are about to get the inside scoop on a top team in the NFC South.
That's right, Cheryl. Despite a pandemic, the NFL season, for the most part, has gone fairly well, unless you're a Dallas Cowboy fan like myself. But even with a few players and coaches testing positive for COVID, for the most part, they've had the ability to keep the teams on the field and keep everything as smooth as possible. So our next guest is quite familiar with all the protocols, as he's the Saints insider, Mr. Mike Nabors. Welcome to Main Street Living.
Great to be on with you. This is fun. I look forward to this.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild season so far, but you have the distinct privilege of interviewing Drew Brees exclusively after every game, especially over the last 14 years. Even with the Super Bowl conversation that you had with him. But what stands out about him for you the most?
Well, we've kind of grown up together a little bit. We thought when we first did it, I didn't know how many seasons we would do it, but here we are in our 14th season. When we started, Drew didn't have any children. Now he has 4. He had a bum shoulder, and now he's a future Hall of Famer. Didn't have a Super Bowl ring, and he, it's just didn't have all the records that he has. So I would never have predicted the run when we started this back in 2007. So I feel privileged to have rode shotgun for such a great ride.
Yeah, well, and obviously Brees not a spring chicken anymore, but still looks pretty good. And we know dealing with an injury, dealing with some broken ribs, I believe. When do you expect him to return, and what do you expect that to look like?
Well, it's really crazy when you think about it, because after the game where he was hurt against the San Francisco 49ers, it looked like a few cracked ribs and the collapsed lung, and obviously that's serious. But then we found out that he has 11 cracked ribs. And I had to Google this because I'm not an anatomy and physiology major. There are 24 ribs in the human body. So if he has 11 cracked ribs, almost half his ribs are cracked.
That's a lot of ribs.
That's a lot of ribs. And I've talked to him about how on earth did you play? And I think he's such a gamer and a guy who's not going to be missing any action unless he just can't. So he was pushed to the limit. And after that 49ers game, it was the lowest he's ever been, understandably so, because I think he knew it was serious, but also after the game, you don't know exactly what it is. And now that he knows what it is, I've talked to him since, he's ready to tackle this, but he's not putting a timeline on it right now. But it's amazing. He's played for 20 years in the NFL, guys, and he's never been put on injured reserve once until now. So he has to miss at least 3 games. The debate will be, how many past the 3 games, and we'll find that out.
Well, that's the interesting thing with him having to miss those games, because his backup, his understudy, Taysom Hill, he's already been kind of put into the mix over the past couple of seasons. And a few weeks ago against the Falcons, I think he had another two rushing TDs, but no passing TDs. So what is your take on Taysom Hill's replacing Drew Brees eventually?
Yeah, you mentioned that Falcons game a few weeks back. I mean, you look at the lineage of Taysom Hill before that. He came onto the scene as this quarterback who's playing special teams and making special teams tackles. Then he's returning kicks. He's catching passes. He's running with the football. He's throwing the football. Drew Brees, I think, is jealous because he wants to catch a pass from Taysom Hill. But they're not going to let that ever happen because they don't want anybody to get hurt there. But it's credit to Sean Payton. Sean Payton is so creative in so many ways, but the Green Bay Packers, they're the ones who had Taysom Hill in the practice squad. Nobody drafted Taysom Hill out of Brigham Young, but Sean Payton was watching tape of the Green Bay Packers, and he was looking at another player, and then he saw Taysom Hill throw the football, and he said, "Who's this guy?" And so when you're on the practice squad, you can grab players. So he liked what he saw from Taysom Hill after watching another player. So what he's done with Taysom Hill since creatively with the New Orleans Saints is so impressive. And then it leads up to him replacing Drew Brees. So the story is unbelievable and it's ongoing. But many forget about this, that Taysom Hill's 30 years old. Many thought Jameis Winston would step in when Drew Brees went down. Taysom Hill's 4 years older than Jameis Winston. And going into his first start against Atlanta a few weeks back, he had fewer pass attempts than his age going in. So all kinds of numbers that just kind of boggle your mind with Taysom Hill.
Well, and it obviously went better for him than it did for poor Matt Ryan. Oh my goodness. What, 8 sacks? So tell me about the Saints defense. Do you see how far can they actually take this team this year?
That's a good question, because last year when Drew Brees went down, he missed 5 games and Teddy Bridgewater stepped in. You got to give Teddy Bridgewater a lot of credit, but the defense should get most of the credit. The defense really stepped up when Drew Brees went out a year ago, and they're doing the same now. You saw signs of this towards the end before Brees' injury. I mean, when they blew out the Bucs and Tom Brady in Tampa 38-3, you saw the defense start playing better. And it's strange because you thought the defense really would be the strength heading into the season, but they had a slow start, but they picked it up at the perfect time with Brees' injury. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up moving forward.
Well,
Definitely.
We certainly appreciate you being on the show with us today. And people,
Yes.
This is CST's Saints Insider, Mike Nabors, who you can catch on Saints Game Day and Saints Tonight. So thanks you very
so much, Mike. We appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it. Anytime you need me, I'm glad to be on with you.
You got it.
Thanks, Mike. All right, well, stick with us because coming up, we're going to help you figure out how to find the perfect Christmas tree.